Hi all, I'd like to zoom in on a very interesting thing that happened in round 3. Magnus Carlsen was playing against Anish Giri, which he hasn't actually beaten in a classical game. A very difficult opponent. They've had draws, he's lost once or twice to Giri, but he's never actually beaten him. So this was a moment here in the game, and I may do the complete game later at some point. But this is at move 36. Black had just played h takes g6. Black had used the plan of f5, very aggressive plan, to undermine d5. The thing is, his king side has been slightly compromised. There's only one pawn around his king. And Magnus plays a fantastic move here. I'm going to put on an Ng3 for this. Magnus plays an absolutely fantastic move in this position, the best move. Can you guess what Magnus plays here if I give you 5 seconds? Starting from now. Okay, bishop takes g6, and he's stripping bare black's king. There's no pawns around the king. If knight takes g6, queen g4 is actually pretty crushing here. For example, if king g7, knight h4 is very good, and there's going to be big trouble after that. The king's going to be kicked around. Actually, it's a forced mate, this position. This is actually a forced mate in 7 with a rook sack breaking through. Here is a forced mate in 5. So you get the idea that the king's kind of bare, and engines excel at these sort of positions, finding these forced mates and continuations which really tear to shreds the opponent's king. So here ending a mate. So a fantastic move, bishop takes g6. So Magnus has taken away the last remaining pawn around the king. Very dramatic position. And here, okay, so knight takes g6, queen g4, there's really no defense here. If queen c7, the strongest there, even stronger than knight h4, that's pretty strong in this position. If knight h4, queen g7, say, now stronger than getting the queens off is actually, say, rook g3, and there's relentless pressure. It's a massive advantage. So we have this dramatic setting now where black, now Anish Giri, played rook takes b5, and it's this position which was even shown to Garry Kasparov apparently, and even Kasparov couldn't find the correct move. It was only later. It's a really tactical move in this position, which I think, without engines this would take several days for some researchers to find. It wouldn't be so instant as nowadays, but it's an amazing position where actually white has potentially a big advantage here. Logically, black has played very logically in some respects to try and undermine d5, but the price paid for king safety, it's difficult to really, if you're human, to detect all these variations and possibilities. There's an amazing move gaining a fantastically important tempo in this position. I wonder if you can guess it or try and work it out. You might want to come back to the video in a few minutes, or you might want to stop and pause and analyze the position, maybe for 5-10 minutes, or depending how serious you are, maybe even half an hour. But there's a fantastic resource here which exploits the fact that there's the queen's kind of over here, the rook's kind of over here. There's a potential loose piece of the bishop moves. The rook on c8 might be loose. But we know with the knight on f4 covering a few key squares, you might not think it's that bad. But there's a move which seems to break through black's defences here. So can you guess what it is? 5 more seconds from this, from now, I'll show you. Okay, it didn't happen in the game. Bishop f7 is the move. It didn't happen in the game. Just to quickly show the game continuation, queen e4, and after rook f8 it wasn't so easy. There was some simplification occurring in the game. The queens came off, and eventually it ended up in a draw, a very interesting draw, with the pawns against the knight. It was eventually drawn. But yeah, this very, very critical moment here, instead of queen e4, this move is bishop f7. And it's really interesting how quickly a queen can get to the king here with a move like this, bishop f7 check. Let's look at some of the possibilities. They're quite fascinating, really, to explore. First of all, Okay, first of all, king g7, queen e4, and although that doesn't threaten queen g6, there is a threat of knight takes e5 here, trying to break through. The knight on f4 is covering g6, so knight takes e5 is the principal threat here. And if, okay, let's say bishop takes d5, bishop takes, the knight takes, here, knight takes e5 is actually pretty strong, or there's a check. Either are very, very strong. So say knight takes e5, queen g6 now is supported. So if takes, queen g6 is a mate in 2. So this knight e5, takes e5 is breaking through here. And if takes rook g3, check. And yeah, the black king has had it. For example, like this, the coordination here is leading to a forced mate. Actually, this is leading to a forced mate, a king chase. This is a mate in 4 now. And if here, like queen takes b5. So this is all, yeah, after queen e4, you know, bishop f7, king g7, queen e4. This principal threat is knight takes e5. As I say, these resources are absolutely incredible. You know, I'm not sure in you know, 20-30 years ago these would just go missed. What does black actually do if it's not bishop takes d5? Queen c7. You might think it's good for, you know, knight takes e5, but that's played anyway. Here, rook g3 check, and here queen f5 is pretty strong. So queen f6 is coming along, mating on g7. What does black do in this position? Say here, bishop e6, and now queen f6 again is threatened. And it's very difficult for black to do anything here. If rook g8, that's mate. Ouch. So queen f6 now threatened. If rook takes e6, d takes. So here, queen f6. Here, rook takes e5. The other rook is going to do the damage. Potentially, not with that, pardon me, but with e7 or queen takes f4 now. Black's falling apart here. So check. Then you can take that with advantage. Anyway, massive advantage. So what does black do here if it's not giving up material? Say bishop c6. e7, and now queen takes g7 is threatened, so black would have to give up the queen. So it's breaking through to the black king basically. This bishop f7, it's a remarkable resource, breaking through to the black king after queen e4. So let's look at this again. So bishop takes g6, bishop f7 check, and I'm going to promote that variation. It didn't happen in the game, so I'm just going to promote this variation. So let's just have a look at this again. So we've had a look at king g7, queen e4. So remarkably, the idea is not even queen g6 here. It's just knight takes e5 is so crushing. The rook's getting in on the things, and the queen's breaking through potentially on the e file. So we've had a look at, you know, queen c7. We've had a look at bishop takes d5. Rook c4. Let's have a look at rook c4. What's the idea? Well, actually, white can just take time to do this. It's a bit desperate, so it's not really that important to look at, because white clearly is doing very well here. After this white's just massively up here. So yeah, it seems queen e4 has this idea of knight takes e5, and that's what makes it so amazingly crushing. If king takes f7, in this position, check, and say the king goes over here, knight takes e5 is crushing, just breaking through to the king. This is strong enough. This is absolute murder. The king's just too exposed. So yeah, what does black do? So after queen e4, let's go earlier on bishop f7. This bishop f7 check. If the king didn't take, okay, let's now look at, say, king f8. Now queen e4 again is a central pivot move, pivoting via the center, and you know, what is the principal threat here? Well, actually, it might be queen f5 or knight takes e5 here. So say king e7, well, this allows knight takes e5, and it's breaking through in a devastating fashion. This is no need to look any further there. So king f8 is not really helping in this position after queen e4. What is happening here? If queen c7, a great resource in this position, might even be stronger than knight takes e5, although that's pretty strong, is knight d4. But knight takes e5 is also pretty devastating with rook g3. And we see here that now rook g8 check is supported. If taking to extinguish that, queen takes e5, and now queen d6 check and queen h8 are threatened. Say knight g6, pardon me, knight g6, not rook takes g6, queen d6, and rook e7. Yes, it seems in all these variations white is breaking through to the black king after bishop f7. It's a pretty stunning resource. So we've had a look at taking, and this queen e4 pivot is so powerful. We've had a look at king f8. If king h8, queen e4, and now, as well as knight takes e5 being dangerous, queen f5, actually the strongest might be knight g5 in this position for looking at h7. So if bishop takes d5, here queen f5, threatening a mate in 2 of queen f6 and knight g5 check. If bishop takes f7, here knight g5, and it seems as though black can defend for a moment, but now this rook drops. Yes, these are just really engine variations. You have to be very brave to do this if you couldn't calculate it all, but it ends up, you know, white's winning here. He's a rook up. So yeah, it just seems there's no actual defense after bishop f7. It's one of those situations where I think engines rule. If you've got your king exposed, the engines will find a way to get to your king. Doesn't matter what black does, he seems to be getting exterminated. We've had a quick look at king f8, a quick look at king h8, king g7, we've had a quick look, you know, queen e4. So what does black do? Taking, we looked at taking, king takes, queen e4 again, and queen f5 or knight takes is strong, or queen h7 check here. This is all quite murderous. What does black do here? If say rook g8 check, knight g5 check here, and if king f6 check, say here check, and there's a king hunting game here with a rook sack. Yeah, these variations show how brutal chess is when king safety is involved. It really just demonstrates, yeah, king safety is really underestimated by us humans. I think this position is absolutely murderous because of the knight g5 resource. You might think, okay, hang on, instead of rook g7, king f8. Here, precision is actually needed. So knight g5 is stopped. You know, rook takes g5. It's not that convincing. But in this position now, queen f5. Now king e7. Knight takes e5 is pretty crushing and straightforward. Queen takes is also pretty crushing and straightforward. With the idea knight takes e5 is coming up soon. So say bishop takes. It doesn't even matter about g2. Knight takes. If here, king f1, there's no check for the white king, and then black's king is getting it again. Yep. So yeah, it just seems as though it doesn't actually matter what happens here after bishop f7. All of these moves have refutations. Taking, king f8, king g7. Have we checked out king h8? I'm just going to check. We've briefly mentioned king h8, yes. King h7 is probably the only one we didn't. So I'll just have a look at king h7. Well, that's check. If king here, knight's covering g6, but in this position queen f5, now threatening queen f6, and then if here knight g5, mate in 2. What does black do here? Queen d8, knight takes e5, threatening this, d takes, rook takes e5 is good enough, but even stronger, rook g3 is a forced mate. Yes, it's all just converging around the black king. What does black actually do here? Say this, rook takes e5. So queen h5 is actually threatened if rook takes mating. Black can throw in a spite check, and you know he's faced with the termination here of his king. Yeah, so it just seems it's just an amazing resource. It seems as though we can say now that actually, you know, black's plan with f5 is a bit risky. He let his king safety go, and Magnus was on the verge of exploiting that. The initial move was found by Magnus, which is a really strong move. Bishop takes g6 here, stripping away black's king even more. It's just here, this move bishop f7. And Kasparov was looking at bishop h7 check. This isn't so good. It has to be, it seems, the other way. Here, it seems, instead of taking, this is bad because of the same sort of stuff with tempo. This position's bad. But black doesn't have to go in for this. Black here can, it seems, save himself with king h8. Say queen e4. Then black is actually saving himself. This move rook f8 now, because white is actually threatening queen f5 among other things. But rook f8 here, and you might think knight takes. Well, actually d takes here. There's queen f6 now, and black is surviving. So it seems bishop h7 check is not quite good enough because of king h8. Just about. Yeah. So here. There's another strange move which engines check out, which is queen a4. Funny enough, no idea about this. Queen a4. So like knight takes with the idea. I don't know what the idea is, but it seems this is dangerous if black doesn't react appropriately. Maybe just getting out of the way for bishop d3 and queen e4 is the idea. But yeah, queen e4, it seems as though rook f8. It's just remarkable that sometimes, yeah, there's these resources which, if it was like a correspondence game, you know, with engines, of course someone would pick it up. It would be the end of game here because of bishop f7. But you know, most online correspondence sites like Chessboard, they don't allow engine use, so you'd just be exterminated with bad king safety. Bishop f7, might as well just resign here if it was a correspondence game. Yeah, over the board chess. Yeah, of course these moves are very difficult for any human to find. I find it a little bit fascinating though, that visually it's kind of almost deceptive, as though the knight's just about doing a defensive job here. But it just turns out that in every single variation, black is busted after bishop f7. I don't know if you guys want to recap on this. I'll give you the PGN, but king f8, just recap an example. Bang. King h8, queen e4, and splat is coming like this, or just a winning position. King takes, queen e4. So that central pivot was also quite fascinating. King driven up the board here in spectacular fashion. So bishop f7, absolutely amazing. King h7, well, it's with check here. It does look intuitively not so clever. And now things are getting pretty dangerous. Yeah, rook coming to g6, and now queen coming to h5 to get a mate. Yeah. So bishop f7, it just seems winning in every single variation. It seems as though, yeah, this is very similar to what we've just seen. So yes, what does black do after bishop f7? It seems busted, totally busted. It's a technical resource, and yeah, it just shows, you know, that yeah, you can have a winning position, but to find these amazingly technical resources, yeah, maybe Mikhail Tal, you know, apparently, you know, he did have a more than human capacity for the calculation of variations. Maybe it's a Mikhail Tal move, bishop f7 check. Kasparov had praised Mikhail Tal for being able to see moves like this, you know, instantly. Bishop f7, it leads to, you know, fantastic sacrifices here and possibilities. It just seems to be winning in all the variations. Bishop f7. One which, again, just to recap on that one, yes, here. There's other paths here, of course. Queen c7. They all seem to fail. Queen c7. Let's recap this. Queen c7. Knight takes e5. Rook g3. Say here, queen takes. This is winning. But you know, who would be brave enough to calculate all this stuff? Because here, you know, it's like 2 pieces up for black, but he's faced with queen d6 in this position. But he's like 2 pieces up. You know, if rook e8, then there's queen h8. That's mating. But yeah, this is just a winning position again for white. If knight g6, taking, it's crumbling for black. Sorry, not rook takes g6. That's an inaccuracy. No. Queen d6 check. Rook e7. This is crumbling for black. Yeah, I'll give you the PGN. It's just a fascinating position for those interested in technical stuff around this tournament. This was one of the more technical resources missed so far in the rounds, in the first few rounds. Bishop f7 check. So it would have led to have Magnus's first win over Anish Giri in classical time control. Anyway, comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.